진짜 학생 시절인
그런 얘기 하지 마.
네.
Lovely viewers, welcome back to our channel, and thank you for gathering here once again like family. Today's story is one that feels tender, emotional, and deeply human. It isn't loud, doesn't rush, it doesn't demand attention. Instead, it gently opens a door into Song Hye-kyo's heart as she reveals why this Christmas means everything to her, not as a global icon, not as a screen legend, but as a woman who has lived, loved, endured, healed, and grown. As the year slowed and the familiar chill of December wrapped itself around the city, Song Hye-kyo found herself in a place she hadn't fully experienced in a long time. Not a place on a map, but a place within herself. Christmas, for her this year, was not just a holiday marked by lights and calendars. It was a turning point, quiet emotional milestone, a moment where past and present finally met without conflict. For many years, Christmas had come and gone in her life like a beautifully wrapped package she never had time to open. There were always schedules to keep, commitments to honor, expectations to meet. Sets didn't pause for holidays. Public life didn't slow for emotions. And while she smiled through festive appearances and year-end events, there was often a part of her that felt like an observer rather than a participant. This year was different. Song Hye-kyo revealed in her own gentle way that this Christmas wasn't about what she did, but about how she felt. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like she was running toward something or away from something. She felt present, fully present, and that presence, she admitted, changed everything. Lovely viewers, imagine what that means for someone who has spent decades living under constant observation. To finally wake up without emotional weight pressing on the chest. To breathe without feeling rushed. To sit in silence without loneliness attached to it. That, she shared, was her Christmas gift to herself. She spoke softly about how the past few years reshaped her understanding of happiness. Success no longer meant applause. Peace no longer meant isolation. Love no longer meant endurance. Christmas arrived at a time when she finally allowed herself to stop proving anything to anyone. What made this Christmas so meaningful, she revealed, was the absence of pressure. No need to perform joy. No need to appear strong. No need to fill silence. She allowed the day to unfold naturally. Gently, honestly. She talked about how mornings felt different. How she noticed small things again. The warmth of tea in her hands. The way sunlight touched the room. The comfort of familiar voices. These were details she once overlooked, not because they weren't important, but because she was always moving forward, always surviving, always transitioning. And here, lovely viewers, is where her story becomes ours too. Because how many of us have experienced holidays while emotionally exhausted? How many of us have smiled through celebrations while carrying unresolved pain? Song Hye-kyo's revelation isn't just about Christmas. It's about healing arriving quietly, without announcement. She shared that this Christmas symbolized forgiveness. Not the kind that's spoken aloud, but the kind that happens internally. Forgiving herself for staying too long in places that drained her. Forgiving herself for believing she had to be strong all the time. Forgiving herself for equating worth with endurance. There was a calm honesty in the way she described it. No bitterness, no regret, just understanding. She also revealed that this Christmas marked the first time she truly felt grateful for her journey exactly as it was. Pain, the growth, pauses, the lessons, not because they were easy but because they led her here. To a place where joy didn't feel fragile. For Song Hye-kyo, Christmas became a mirror. It showed her how far she had come emotionally. How much lighter her heart felt. How different life looks when you stop carrying what no longer belongs to you. Lovely viewers, pause for a moment and ask yourself, when was the last time a holiday felt like that for you? She spoke about choosing simplicity this year. About how she didn't need elaborate plans or grand celebrations. What mattered was emotional safety. Familiar energy, genuine connection. She realized that peace isn't found in doing more, but in needing less. There was also something deeply powerful in her admitting that this Christmas felt like closure. Not closure in a dramatic sense, but the quiet kind. The kind where old chapters stop whispering. where memories no longer hurt when recalled, where the past finally sits where it belongs. She didn't erase her history. She honored it, but she no longer lived inside it. And perhaps the most touching part of her revelation was when she spoke about hope. Not loud, ambitious hope, but steady hope. The kind that doesn't demand immediate answers. The kind that trusts time. This Christmas, she said, reminded her that life doesn't have to be rushed to be meaningful. That love doesn't have to be loud to be real. That happiness doesn't have to be proven to exist. Lovely viewers, this is why her words resonated so deeply. Because they weren't polished for effect. They were lived. She also reflected on gratitude. Gratitude for health. Gratitude for growth. Gratitude for moments that didn't make headlines but changed her internally. Gratitude for being able to sit with herself without discomfort. Christmas, she revealed, became a moment of emotional reunion. A reunion with herself. And as she shared this, fans around the world responded not with curiosity, but with empathy. Many said her words felt like permission. Permission to slow down. Permission to rest. Permission to redefine happiness on their own terms. As the holiday season ended, Song Hye-kyo didn't rush to explain or elaborate. She let the meaning linger. Because some truths don't need repetition. They settle gently like snow and stay. Lovely viewers, if this story touched you, let it remind you that healing doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it arrives quietly, during moments we least expect, and stays because we finally make room for it. Christmas meant everything to Song Hye-kyo this year, not because it changed her life overnight, but because it reflected who she has become. Whole, grounded, peace. And as you move forward, carrying your own stories, your own memories, your own hopes, remember this. You don't need a perfect moment to feel complete. Sometimes all it takes is presence and connection, and from that place of warmth and understanding, the story doesn't end. It gently opens wider, inviting us to sit with it a little longer, to feel its weight, its comfort, its truth. Because when Song Hye-kyo spoke about what this Christmas meant to her, she wasn't closing a chapter. She was acknowledging a moment of arrival. An arrival is never loud. It's quiet and steady. It's deeply personal. Lovely viewers, after that Christmas passed, what lingered wasn't decoration or celebration, but clarity. Song Hye-kyo carried something forward with her. Something that didn't fade with the season. It was a renewed sense of self-trust. The kind that comes when you've spent years listening to outside voices and finally learned to hear your own again. She revealed that in the days following Christmas, she felt lighter in ways she couldn't immediately explain. Not euphoric, not dramatic, just lighter. As if emotional weight she had grown used to carrying had quietly loosened its grip. That's how healing often works. Not by erasing pain, but by changing how it sits inside you. For her, Christmas became a reminder that she no longer needed to brace herself for the next emotional impact. She no longer needed to anticipate disappointment or prepare for loss. She allowed herself to enjoy calm without waiting for it to end. And that, she admitted, was new. Imagine how powerful that realization is for someone whose life has been defined by constant transitions. New roles, new expectations, new scrutiny. To finally feel still and safe within yourself, that's not something you forget once the holidays are over. And this is where her story reaches out to include all of us again. Because how many times have we mistaken survival for strength? How many times have we told ourselves we were fine simply because we kept going? Song Hye-kyo's reflection on this Christmas gently challenges that narrative. It reminds us that rest is not weakness, and peace is not complacency. She spoke about how she used to associate quiet with loneliness, how silence once felt heavy, even uncomfortable. But this Christmas rewired that association. Silence became nurturing. Stillness became reassuring. Being alone no longer meant being empty, it meant being whole. Lovely viewers, sit with that for a moment. She also shared that this Christmas helped her redefine what emotional fulfillment looks like. It wasn't about having everything figured out. It wasn't about reaching some final destination. It was about accepting where she was without judgment. about allowing herself to be enough without conditions. There was something deeply moving in how she described waking up during the holidays without anxiety, without that familiar sense of needing to do something to justify the day. She allowed time to pass without productivity attached to it. And in doing so, she rediscovered joy in simply existing. That's why this Christmas meant everything to her. Because it didn't ask her for anything. It gave instead. She reflected on how, for the first time, she didn't measure her year by achievements or losses, but by emotional honesty. She looked back and didn't ask, "What did I gain?" but "What did I release?" And the answer brought her peace. Fans who listened to her words felt seen. Many shared how her reflections mirrored their own silent struggles. How holidays often amplify unresolved feelings. How expectations can overshadow authenticity. Her honesty didn't distance her from her audience. It brought her closer. And that closeness wasn't built on shared details, but shared emotions. Lovely viewers, this continuation matters because it shows us that meaning doesn't disappear when the moment passes. It settles, integrates, it becomes part of who you are moving forward. Song Hye-kyo didn't emerge from Christmas transformed into someone new. She emerged more deeply herself, more grounded, more aligned, more gentle with her own heart. She also spoke about gratitude, not the performative kind, but the quiet acknowledgement of growth. Gratitude for lessons learned slowly. Gratitude for time. Gratitude for the ability to feel deeply again without fear. Christmas, for her, wasn't a celebration of perfection. It was a celebration of acceptance. And perhaps the most profound thing she shared was this, that she no longer feels the need to rush healing. She understands now that some things unfold in their own time, and forcing closure only delays peace. This Christmas taught her patience with herself. Lovely viewers, how many of us need that reminder? As the year continues to move forward, she carries this understanding with her, not as a memory to revisit once a year, but as a foundation. Something steady beneath her steps. Something she can return to when life grows loud again. And so, this story continues not in headlines, but in choices, in boundaries, in moments of pause, in kindness toward oneself. If you're listening to this and feeling emotional, that's okay. This story isn't meant to entertain. It's meant to resonate. It's meant to remind you that your quiet moments matter too. That your unseen healing counts. That your Christmas, however it looked, held meaning simply because you were present in it. Lovely viewers, as we close this continuation, don't think of it as an ending. Think of it as an invitation to slow down, to listen inward, to redefine what everything means to you. Because sometimes everything isn't found in what we gain, but in what we finally allow ourselves to feel. Presence, and from that place of awareness, the story continues to unfold with even more depth, because once you learn how to be present with yourself, life begins to speak differently. Song Hye-kyo's reflection on this Christmas did not fade as the days passed. Instead, it quietly reshaped how she moved through the world afterward, how she listened, how she chose, and how she allowed herself to feel without judgment. Lovely viewers, one of the most touching things about this continuation is realizing that after Christmas, she didn't rush to protect that feeling by isolating herself from life. She carried it with her into everyday moments, into conversations, into work, into silence, into laughter. The calm she found didn't demand constant quiet. It taught her how to remain centered even when life became busy again. She shared that for the first time in years, she noticed her reactions changing. Situations that once stirred anxiety no longer held the same power. Questions that once felt intrusive no longer felt threatening. It wasn't that the world had softened. It was that she had. And softness, she realized, is not vulnerability. It's wisdom. This Christmas helped her understand that healing doesn't mean you stop feeling pain. It means pain no longer controls how you live. It means memories lose their sharp edges. It means you can look back without being pulled backward. And that realization stayed with her long after the holiday lights came down. Lovely viewers, Think about how rare it is to hear someone speak so honestly about emotional evolution without turning it into a performance. Song Hye-kyo didn't describe a breakthrough moment filled with tears or dramatic clarity. She described something quieter, a sense of emotional safety within herself, a feeling that she could trust her own heart again. She talked about how this Christmas helped her reconnect with joy in its simplest form. Not excitement, not celebration, just gentle joy. The kind that doesn't spike and crash. The kind that rests comfortably inside you. She realized that joy doesn't always announce itself with laughter. It often arrives as contentment. This realization changed how she viewed relationships too. She no longer felt the need to overextend herself emotionally. She became more comfortable with boundaries, not as walls, but as expressions of self-respect. Christmas taught her that love should feel like shelter, not survival. And here again, lovely viewers, the story opens its arms to include all of us. How many of us have mistaken emotional exhaustion for love? How many of us have stayed in spaces that required us to shrink or harden just to endure them? Song Hye-kyo's Christmas reflection becomes a mirror, quietly asking us to evaluate what peace actually feels like in our own lives. She also revealed that this season helped her rediscover trust, not just in others but in time. She stopped feeling the need to rush outcomes. She stopped measuring progress by visible change. She allowed things to unfold naturally, believing that what is meant to remain will do so without force. This Christmas reminded her that not everything needs fixing. Some things simply need acceptance. Some feelings don't need explanation. Some moments don't need witnesses. Lovely viewers, there's something profoundly liberating about that truth. As weeks passed, she found herself smiling more easily, not because everything was perfect, but because she was no longer carrying unnecessary weight. She stopped replaying old conversations. She stopped questioning past decisions. She allowed the past to stay where it belonged. She spoke about how Christmas gave her emotional permission to rest, to stop striving, to stop holding herself to impossible standards, to stop apologizing for needing time. And perhaps the most meaningful part of this continuation is that she didn't frame this peace as permanent or guaranteed. She acknowledged that life will still bring challenges. But now, she knows she can meet them without losing herself. Lovely viewers, that kind of confidence doesn't come from success or validation. It comes from self-acceptance. This Christmas meant everything to Song Hye-kyo because it marked the moment she realized she no longer needed to run toward happiness. It was already with her. Quiet, steady, patient. And as we continue this story together, let it remind you of something important. You don't need a dramatic turning point to change your life. Sometimes all it takes is a moment of stillness that finally allows you to hear yourself clearly. So as you move forward, carry this continuation not as a celebrity story, but as a shared human experience. Let it encourage you to honor your own pace, to value your quiet wins, to trust that healing doesn't have a deadline. Lovely viewers, thank you for staying present with this story, for listening deeply, and for allowing space for reflection. This journey continues, not just for Song Hye-kyo, but for anyone who chooses peace over pressure and presence over performance.